Today's webinar, I'm very excited about again. I know I get excited a lot. And it's about nonprofits speaking on mastering high impact volunteer engagement. I think that we'll find a lot of organizations don't have the paid staff, but they do have volunteer power. And we want to hear more about how to make that work, how to make your organization do its work really well with volunteers. I'm Yvonne Sims, Educational Programming Manager based out in Atlanta, where it is getting warmer. And we have Carla in the background. She didn't put her picture up, but she's helping us. You'll see her candid, her answers to your questions or putting in links and all of those things. So she is supporting us in the back. If you don't know Candid already, we are the coming together of two organizations, GuideStar and Foundation Center. So you may remember those organizations. And those organizations have over 90 years of nonprofit experience with the two of them together. Every year, millions of nonprofits spend trillions of dollars around the world. Candid finds out where that money comes from, where it goes, and why it matters. Through research, collaboration, and training, Candid connects people who want to change the world with the resources they need to do it. We do that through trainings like the ones we're doing today. We do it through different panel discussions, just getting you information that we know is important for your work. Also, we have partners throughout the country that will help you with our tools. So Candid has tools that are located at different libraries for the most part, some nonprofit resource centers, some United Ways. And if you want to know where those are, you can always go to candid.org/find us to find our products. Another thing we wanted to mention is we're in very interesting times. That's probably the best way I can put it. A lot going on politically, a lot going on with our government that affects our sector. And so while we're not a traditional advocacy organization, Candid is not, we are paying close attention to all the developments that could impact our sector's work. We'll continue to share updates through Candid Insights, and we can give you that link. And then we also encourage you to continue to look to the organizations that are doing a really good job of like policy tracking and putting everything in one place. So the National Council of Nonprofits, the Independent Sector, and Council on Foundations. So these are all the organizations that we're also looking to make sure that we can continue to do our work in an effective and impactful way. And we want you to, be as aware as we are. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We know. We are recording today's presentation. So everything that we do today, we're recording. We're also have the PowerPoint for you and the video of this. All of that should be to you by Friday. So we give it a couple of days. We're going to clean everything up and send out everything that we did today. We are in Zoom webinar, which we have been for a minute, particularly webinar, not a meeting. So we're not able to see you or hear you, but we can see your reactions. So I did see your reactions earlier. Thank you. Please use that as much as possible in terms of, letting us know what you're thinking out there, what you're feeling out there. In chat, that's what we'll use to talk to you, and obviously you can use to talk to each other. But when it comes to questions, if you have questions for the panelists today, questions for me, questions for Candid, put those in the Q&A. We want to make sure that we're able to separate chat from Q&A because there's a lot going on in the chat a lot of times. So make sure that you put your questions in the Q&A. And if you see any questions that look like what you wanted to ask, you want to upvote, you're curious about that as well, then you can click the little upvote button, the little thumbs up, and we'll take those questions as kind of the most popular comes in. We really appreciate your feedback. As you know, if you're in nonprofits, we're constantly asking people for feedback, surveying, trying to find out what they're thinking. And we are using that information. That's something that's really important. Like, oh, why are we asking? Are we going to use this? Yes. In fact, we learned last year from our surveys that our Ask Me Anything webinars were a really good value for our participants. And so we have more of those coming up this year. year. So please let us know how we're doing. You'll get, I think I'll show you the survey at the end. You'll get a pop-up when you're done with the webinar where you get to also look at, do the survey as soon as you're done. So please let us know what you think, and that way we can continue to do the kinds of things that people are enjoying and that are helping with work. All right, so today's webinar, these are our folks today. We have Aiden Gabriel, who is the founder and executive director of La Rubella Collective. We have Mina Davis, who is the director of All Things Women, and we have Alicia Rivera, who is the chief financial officer and co-founder of Feeding Georgia Families. So they're here today, and normally, so I'm gonna stop sharing, gonna do important work, y'all. I'm gonna show you videos, so we're all hoping this goes well. But our leaders today all had videos that they were able to share. So rather than reading their bios and doing it that way, we're actually gonna learn a little bit about their organizations through these videos and then go ahead and talk to them. So I'm gonna start, and hopefully I'll see a thumbs up and people will let me know you can hear this once I start, but I'm gonna start with All Things Women.
New at 5, as leaders investigate and commit to addressing gaps in homelessness, we're shining a spotlight on a nonprofit working behind the scenes.
All Things Women, Inc. is a transitional housing shelter that's been working to help connect people to resources for years, and tonight it's growing.
The shelter moving from a location with 11 beds to a space that will house 80 beds. 7 News Detroit reporter Christiana Ford sharing the nonprofit's message to the community tonight.
A lot of people have been talking about the need for housing across the city of Detroit and the lack of shelter beds. This nonprofit, All Things Women, Inc., is doing something about it, and they have a message for people frustrated right now.
Hello, thank you for calling All Things Women. How may I help you?
Every day is busy at All Things Women, Inc.
I want to say 60 calls a day, asking for shelter, asking for housing, asking for help.
So busy trying to meet the demand, the Transitional Housing Shelter and Community Resource Hub is moving to try to help even more.
The need is still great.
There's been progress, but not nearly enough beds for people in need across the city.
There is help. It's very limited. A lot of the places, spaces are very full.
Director of Operations, Shanice Terrell, says even starting the process can be difficult.
I really want to say most beds are full within 48 hours of them being open.
That's why they help people navigate through temporary shelter to permanent. This move will take them from 11 to around 80 beds.
The goal is to transition you into your own stable, permanent housing. You paying your own bills, you and your kids living your own life, no help.
The deaths of 2 children on Monday who were experiencing homelessness with their family and living in a van echoes how important that mission is.
We're just excited to open new doors. We're excited to help more women and children.
On a day where there's a lot of frustration over what still needs to be done, they see this as progress and hope.
Take that frustration and get involved. Offer your time, offer monetary, offer your services.
It's one reason why 2 Men and a Truck is partnering to help them move and encouraging others to join them.
Just to be able to help do anything that we can to give back, help, give a lending hand, help someone move forward in their next step in their journey of life.
From March until Mother's Day, they'll also be collecting items that will go to the nonprofit and women they support.
We have collection sites all over Metro Detroit.
All Things Women, Inc. will open up their first beds in the new location on the city's west side within 2 weeks. Christiana Ford, 7 News Detroit.
New at 5, as leaders investigate and commit to
So
addressing.
I have to, even though I said I was about to just show videos, I just have to ask Mina, since you're here and we're talking about this today, what's going on today? Because that was maybe a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that was about 2 weeks ago. It literally gave me chills to watch it because literally today is our final day of moving. 2 Men in the Truck. I know, yay. 2 Men in the Truck are here, like right outside my door. You guys can't hear it, but I have movers. Furniture is everywhere. We probably have about 60 volunteers in the building. They're taking the stuff off the truck, unpacking it. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing feat. Again, to go from 11 beds to 80 beds in 2 weeks is mind-blowing. But again, you know, I prayed and asked God to increase the number of women that I could serve. I had no idea he would increase it this large, but I'm not complaining. So we are moving. We are grateful. And in the true spirit of volunteerism, it brings us here today.
Wonderful. Thank you. So yeah, I'll ask you a little bit more, but I just had to pause and make sure everything's going well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, so we're going to Feeding Georgia Families next.
My name is Alicia Rivera. I am the CFO and co-founder of Feeding Georgia Families. We are a whole well-being approach organization. That means we start with food as a basis, and then we individualize our services to the person or household. So that can include anything from housing assistance to workforce development, and then vital resources, which can be diapers, incontinence items, soap, anything else that a family may need. We started off in 2010. We were feeding the homeless. We did about 400 plates a week from our home. In 2013, we decided to branch out into also offering a food pantry. We open every Monday since then.
Since I moved down here from Detroit, Michigan, I've been coming here for about a year now.
Feeding Georgia Families, I found it a viable program. Definitely helps with the grocery bill.
We've been coming to Feeding Georgia Families 3 years. We appreciate Allie and the company because they really treat you well. Now, I'm a person that helps the neighbors out also, so I pick up food for them for her pantry, which helps all these people a whole lot.
2 households, no kids. Trunk or the back seat? We wanted to make sure that our food pantries were inclusive to anyone in need that needed assistance. So we made sure that we offered vegan, plant-based options. We also account for any allergy or dietary restrictions as well. Over here, we are composting. We try to have as close to zero waste as food waste as possible. So we compost anything that's bad, and it goes to our local small farmers. So our food programs have grown from offering our Monday pantries to delving into direct-to-home services. So we are able to mail or purchase items and have them sent directly to our families' homes. Even if one member of the family has one dietary issue, we are able to make sure that the entire household is served. When we started our pantry, we were serving roughly around 80 families a month. Once the pandemic hit, we went from 80 families a month to serving 5,000 families a month, and we've kept that number since the pandemic. We're seeing greater need from a different demographic of people. We're seeing need across income levels as well. So we're trying to make sure that we're able to serve everyone regardless of their current stated income, because everyone has a moment in time where they may need assistance and they have nowhere to go. And we like to make sure that we're that safety net for those families. We have never in our 14 years not been able to give a household or a family food. Anyone that comes to us every single day, we're able to make sure that they are provided with a food assistance. There's no one that comes to us that does not leave with food assistance. And that is whether they're here physically or if they request for a home delivery, we're able to serve them as well.
So, Allie, of course I have to, are you getting all the love?
Hey y'all,
We
this is
love
Dr.
it.
Tasha and I'm back.
Wait, I have to turn this off. There we go. So yeah, I just had to say, because you're the closest, so I can actually come outside and volunteer. What's going on today out there, Allie?
What's going on today?
Yeah.
Ooh. So yesterday we served 227 families with our drive-up pantry. Today we are taking a rest, a break, but our 24/7 outdoor market is open. So we stocked it all yesterday evening. And so families were able to come out all day today and shop for the items that they need. So even though we're not there, we're still providing.
Gotcha. I love that. Okay, we love to hear it. All right, and then we'll end with Aiden Gabriel's La Rubea Collective.
I've been out here almost my entire life. We just always found it sad that the kids from the community didn't have an opportunity to experience this beautiful ocean. My name is Aiden Gabriel from Far Rockaway, Queens. I am the co-founder of the La Rubea Collective. We started a few years ago with a handful of surfers, and they've become quite proficient. We have a mentorship program where organizers, usually choose 1 or 2 individuals who may be interested in a field that their expertise is in, and they mentor them. People ask me all the time why I do it. I do it for free, but this is what I love to do. If I could do this 7 days a week, every single day, and I would do this. I would do this. This brings me so much joy. Everybody on this peninsula, on this side of the beach, know when they see that rickety minivan with the 7-8 surfboard strapped to the top, they know who we are.
I love it, Aiden. And I have a special place in my heart for your nonprofit because I am from Far Rockaway, Queens. So I grew up knowing that we had a beach. Yeah, we did. It was definitely there. But our parts of the beach were not the safest places to go. We certainly didn't have any programming or anything else that we could take part in. So I am so happy that you're doing the work that you do. So I'm going to pull up your slides because your video was a little shorter than everyone else's, so we didn't have all of the stats. But let us know while I'm finding the slides, let us know what you're doing now, because I'm guessing that that's a little older, right?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Aiden Gabrielle here in Rockaway, Queens, Far Rockaway, Queens. That video is from a couple of years ago, and since then, a lot has happened. You know, Founding story, and I know the video, the slide's going to come up. That's our name there, and how we got started. I spent a career in financial services, and I was not looking to start a nonprofit. My daughter one day came home, and she was 10 years old at the time. She's 18 now, senior in high school. And she told me that she wanted to take a surf lesson. And, just being the dad, wanting to do anything for his princess, I said, okay, fine. I found somebody to get her a lesson. It's quite pricey. 1 hour lesson was about $100, $125. And, she got pushed on that first wave and she was hooked. Put a little post on Instagram. Some people saw it. Some of her friends saw it, and they wanted to surf. And so I had a bit of an issue. I looked around to see if there was an organization that would offer, free lessons or cheaper lessons, and there wasn't. And so just out of that need, I started taking them out. My cousin, who's the co-founder, had just come back from the Marine Corps, a lot younger and fitter, and he knew how to surf. He learned how to surf out in Senegal, and he became the surf instructor. I drove the van with the boards, worked full time for a couple of years, and that was between 8 to 10. Yeah, it was 10. There were 10 girls at the time. It was all girls, and the next summer it was double that, and then more and more and more, and couldn't find anybody else to do it. And so that's how La Rubea was born. The name La Rubea actually is from my people, the Garifuna people. I am Garifuna. I am from Belize, from Dangriga, Belize. And the word La Rubea means on the beach. It's an Afro-Indigenous language. We're found throughout Central America. And I immigrated to Rockaway. I've been here way, way, way too long. Been here since 1981. And I grew up here. And years later, 2018, the kids who, like I said in the video, who live right here in the community are still not, they don't have access to the waters where they live. There are 5 surf camps. And the majority of the kids who come to these surf camps are coming from other communities. They don't look like the children in the community. And it's an expensive thing to do. 1 week of surf camp is $500. So if you bring your child in the summer to do surfing for 1 week, Monday to Friday, that's $500. I don't have that kind of money. A lot of the people that I know didn't have that kind of money. And so that's how we started La Rubea. And, once we started up, like all these different needs came up. So it started as just getting some girls out to wanting to surf, but then it became, a water safety thing. A lot of the kids didn't know how to swim, which is another, we can be here all day talking about why that is and why there's that discrepancy about being kept out of the water. So we had to teach them how to swim. We had to get them swim lessons, equipment. We had to get equipment, and then there was mentorship. It was myself, middle-aged dad, my young cousin who's a Marine, and 10 preteen girls. We just did not know how to relate, and so that's where the volunteering thing came in. We would meet people. They would ask us what we were doing. They would ask if we needed help, and we would be like, yes, we do need help. And, they started coming out. So now, uh, last year alone, we did 235 free surf lessons. Um, we have different kinds of programming. We have programming where the kids who are living in the community are in the organization. We are with them year round. In the summer, we have a 12-week program, 2 6-week programs where the kids go from, early June until August. And then in the off season, there's a mentorship aspect also. The kids actually choose their mentors. It's just, they come out, they volunteer, somebody, get along with somebody else, and maybe the kid is interested in doing something. And that's how we pair them up with the mentor, and we keep that going year round. Um, Now that group of girls who are preteens, or some of them are in college, in their second year of college. My daughter's getting ready to go off to college. So now we have, we work with them and getting into college. And I'll get to all of that. So let me just go through the numbers here because I'll be here forever and everybody wants a turn to talk. Um, so 235 free surf lessons. We have 80 kids in our regular program, 12-week program, and the rest of the kids we got through partnerships. Other youth organizations that are not water-based or not in Rockaway, we partner with them, and they bring their kids out to Rockaway, and we give them a surf day, just intro to surfing, get them on a board, just make a day of it. Last year we started and I'll talk about that more later, our mentor and training program. Since these young ones are coming up now and they're like, 18 and 19 years old, we started a program where they're learning to be the, surf instructors, and they're helping out the new kids and the younger ones. Um, the kids in the program, grades are a big part of it. You have to have good grades to get in, and if you don't, we'll work with you on that. We'll make sure that by the time the summer comes, we get those grades up. That's what we're going to do in a few hours here. A bunch of them are going to be coming here, for homework help in our studio here. So proud that we have, yeah.
And I'll just say, give us your last, what you're needing right now and how you
Right
need
now,
our support.
we are volunteer run. Surfing is not a cheap thing to do. It requires a lot to run these programs, throughout the year and especially in the summertime. And we are volunteer run with three of us that are full-time here with all of these kids. And so the majority of the work that gets done is done through volunteering. You don't have to be a surfer to volunteer. If you know how to work a phone and do social media, if I have folks who come in and help with the books, I have grant writing, which I'm horrible at, come in. And we've got some great grants from people who are really, really good grant writers, volunteering, donations, no matter how small you think it is. A lot of the things that we all do, on here is like we fill in that gap where, the government isn't doing, and it's going to be much more now. And so we know that it's not cheap to do this kind of stuff. So donations, volunteering, and just amplifying. Tell people about us. If you have family who's in New York and hey, there's this group out in Far Rockaway, why don't you check them out? Maybe you can help out.
I love it. Thank you. I know I told somebody, I was telling somebody about your organization. I said something like, oh, if people knew that I grew up on the beach, they'd be confused because I'm from New York. And they're like, y'all have beaches? So yeah,
Yes.
people may not realize that. I'm gonna dive into questions, which I normally wouldn't do, but there's already questions. So I just want to make sure that we start getting to the audience. So Alicia, can you explain the outdoor market more? Is it monitored? Where is it located? What are your challenges with it? Because you're sitting in here and now we're all like, oh no, there's a market outside.
Yes, so the market is 24 hours. It is an outdoor market. We want it to be readily accessible to anyone at any time. We had a lot of families that were coming through that said, hey, I can't make it Monday. I have to work. So we wanted to have an option out there available. We have little small free pantries. We wanted to make it a larger scale of that. We do have cameras set up. It is monitored in that way. And the families are usually very, very respectful of it. They will actually give back. So that's part of the volunteering side of things. If they get food from another pantry that they can't use, they will come to that market, drop off what they can't use on the shelves, and then take what they need. So it's kind of full circle with that market, is that we have reduced food waste as well. So if they're getting things they don't need, they're bringing it there, and then people that can use it are able to use it as well. So it is monitored, but it is more of a honor-based system. And then we have a Saturday market as well. That is the same thing. We call it an outdoor farmers market. And so people that want more of a face-to-face interaction with us can come out on Saturdays and have the same feel. We set up fruits and vegetables. They set up just like a farmer's market outdoors, and they're able to come and shop for the items that they want and need instead of just us giving them things.
Wow. So, Ali, it doesn't, would you say it's kind of like off the road? Like, do I have to know where it is I can't just come upon it?
Oh, no, no. So as you drive up to, it's the first thing you see. It is
Hmm.
front. We have a huge garage that we set up. And so it's underneath the garage. And so rain or shine, they're able to come out, shop comfortably, and be able to take what they need.
Okay. All right. And you haven't had any problems? That's what we're worried about this.
So we've had a couple of issues, like I said,
Mhm.
but generally speaking, 99% of the people are very respectful of it. That 1%, we generally have a conversation with them afterwards because they will come back and say, hey, if there's something, if you're needing more, if you're having this particular issue, you have larger families, if you're trying to take for additional families, come and see us on this day and we'll make sure to load you up so that you're able to take for as many families as you need because we have a lot of families that look out for others. So we'll have a senior that lives in a senior home and she has like 10 other seniors that need food. We have a special day for that. Come on out, we'll load you up, make sure that those seniors are served, and that way that there's still food out there for other families as well.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm going to ask a technical question because people want to know. Uh, Myra says, I'm looking for a database where I can keep track of volunteers and opportunities. I'm at a nonprofit providing free legal help to immigrants, so needed. And so obviously I'm looking for something free or very low cost. Thank you for having this event, for all that you do. Together we can succeed with liberty and justice for all. So systems, are any of you using a particular system to track and, do all that technical stuff? And I'll start with you, Mina.
We actually, our local United Way provides some free software and it allows us to do volunteer tracking. It allows us to track their hours and then it takes their hours and equates it to dollars. So when I'm writing grants, I'm able to say that my volunteer hours generated this much revenue or equivalent. So check with your local United Way because I understand the software is free, and ours is basically called free volunteer software. And prior to that, I used something called Mighty Calls. Mighty Calls has a volunteer software also. So check, utilize your resources in your community. There's a lot of them that are free. Even Microsoft Office has a free volunteer database in there also. So don't spend any money. A lot of places want, a couple $100 a month. Utilize your resources, check with your local United Way, check with your local continuum of care, see what they use. We also use HMIS. So, get something that's free. Don't spend a lot of money on it.
Do you want it to be free, Mina?
I want it to be free. Free
Yes,
99.
yes, and everybody else agrees with you. And I see logistics, maybe I might be messing up these names, but people are sharing also in the chat. Um, Aiden, do you have a resource?
I use JotForm. JotForm and Salesforce for most everything, only because it's,
What you
one of
have?
our board members used to work for New York Cares and really, really big on volunteers. And he was a tech, he is a tech guy and he set that up, and that's kind of what we've been using. It really works for us. And JotForm actually got wind of us using it and was like interested in this, and they flew out from San Francisco with a film crew last year. I should have shared that film to record, our organization and how we use it. So yeah, JotForm only because I'm so used to it now.
I love that. And I was gonna ask the video question. So I'll probably come back to that to ask all of you how you got your videos because people want those as well. Ali, is there anything you guys are using?
So we're using Just Serve, Volunteer Match, and then we also use our own through Google. We have a Google form online that tracks everything as well.
Okay. Good, good, good. All right. So that's good to know. And of course, now I'm not in the questions anymore. But yeah, let me ask since I'm gonna go back to questions, but how did you guys get those lovely videos? And Mina, I realize it wasn't necessarily a produced video, but even the fact that you got that media coverage, can you tell us how that came about?
Well, it's interesting because we didn't actually call the news that day. The
Mhm.
organization that moved us for free, and they literally utilized 5 moving trucks over 3 days, 8 staff, and it was completely free because they are a volunteer resource for us also. So the young lady that you saw in the video, Alyssa Watts, who works for Two Men in the Truck, actually was the one that called the news to say, hey, as a company, we are, not only volunteering for this nonprofit, but this nonprofit is, making this huge leap. And so that is how the news actually showed up on the day that we were moving. And they've literally been here 3 times since, because the city of Detroit has had a lot of issues in our homeless department right now. And so that was a partner. That was a partner who came to us and said, hey, we want to volunteer. And they turned into a full-fledged moving partner. They've sponsored our gala. They've sponsored our awards. Every year they do Moms Movers. They literally fill up a moving truck and show up at our front door. And they bring us diapers, wipes, baby clothes, and they've done it 3 years in a row. So that just came from one person volunteering, going back to their company and saying, hey, this was a great organization, to this larger project, and then subsequently that video.
Wow. Okay. So someone volunteered and really liked what they were able to contribute and went from there. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How did your video come about, Ali? Because it looks
Uh,
really good.
Thank you. So we actually partnered with CCT Atlanta, that's Community Consulting Teams of Atlanta, and they pick about 10 organizations every quarter, excuse me, every biannual, every 6 months to work
Mhm.
with. And so they work on like your strategic plan. If you need any marketing help, there's different areas that they can help you with. And so we sat down with their team and kind of worked out an idea of what we wanted. And then they sent someone out to film everything and they put it all together for us into that video. So we're very thankful for them because that was something that we really needed and it came
Yep.
on time. So we thank them a lot for that.
Yeah, great job too. Aiden, so that one was Google, I think, but you also had Jotform. So yeah, tell us how that came about.
This is through also through a volunteer now organizer. So
Mm.
and mentor. One of our organizers slash mentors, Terumi, is a model, stylist, outdoor person. And she got a job to film for one of the new Google phones at that time. Um, and she was like, "Hey, I'm an organizer with this organization that, does surfing." It was all outdoors. And they were like, "Oh yeah, let's bring him in on it." And so they flew out here, they came out, they filmed the entire thing, and then they shared it with us so we can use it for, any marketing. So through one of our volunteers initially, slash now she's a full-time organizer. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. All right, I'm gonna go back to questions. I'm just gonna kind of start. So they want to know the best ways to keep volunteers engaged, and I'm just gonna add slight bit more drama to it by saying I'm guessing you didn't necessarily set up to be so volunteer heavy, right? Like I'm gonna make an organization that depends on others, or maybe you did. I don't know. And I guess I want to know, on top of how you keep them engaged, is there such thing as, oh my goodness, we don't have any volunteers? Like what's going to happen when you don't have volunteers in your organization? And I'll start with Aiden. So what happens if you don't have volunteers? So what makes you keep them engaged, or how do you keep them engaged?
So I've been on both sides of the spectrum. Like I said, when I first started, it was myself and my cousin, and he was the only one physically in the water with all these girls, worn out, 6 hours sometimes, during the summer in the water with them cramping up. And I went to the extreme, and like anybody who said they would come out, I would have them come out to help out and, learning pains, growing pains. And some people would come out and I'd be like, oh, you know what? I don't really need you today. And, so I had to learn very, very early on to like, one, make sure these folks are trained, when they come out, because you can't say, hey, you did that wrong if you didn't train them in the first place. Um, Make sure that you show your appreciation, a greeting, knowing people's name, a thank you, and just even having little things like you'll have a bowling night one night and just invite the volunteers out. Just truly keeping them engaged throughout the year. And when it's a little bit slower, your newsletters, just keeping them abreast of what's going on. If there's an event with one of the kids that they're having, especially if they're a mentor for them, letting them know that, this thing is going on. It would be nice for you to come out and hang out and, go surprise them. So just doing those kinds of things. I've been super, super fortunate. We had over 80 volunteers last summer, and I needed every single one of them. As you know, Rockaway's not the easiest place to get to. And so if people plan their entire day to hop on a train and a bus, to get out here, you want to make sure that, they're coming out for a reason. So yeah, just really, really fortunate. We couldn't do this without them.
Thank you. Thank you. Ali, how do you keep your volunteers engaged?
There's a couple of things. So if we don't have volunteers, we make it happen. Regardless, we're going to put in the hours and we're going to get it done. But as far as appreciation, one of the main things that we do is, I said, we're family first. So that means our volunteers as well. So we have conversations with our volunteers. We find out if there's things that they may be needing in their lives, and we try to help them with that as well. The next thing that we do is that if they're working somewhere and they have a luncheon or something that's going on, we will say, hey, we'll sponsor your luncheon. Just kind of giving back to them in different ways. So we're always looking for different things that we can do to kind of promote them as well as for the help that they're doing for us. So it's not just all about what they can do for us, it's what we can do for them as well.
That's a great idea. Mina, how do you keep your volunteers engaged?
So we kind of have a three-pronged approach to it. The first thing is matching volunteers to their gifts and their talents. A volunteer may come in the door and think that she's going to work in the kitchen and serve dinner. However, she has phenomenal organization skills. And so we send her to the community closet to help with sorting donations. And then all of a sudden she finds herself working with the community. And then that volunteer comes back to me and says, hey, I didn't know I had a love for this. So matching volunteers with their gifts and their talents. If they like numbers, can you help me on the finance? And if they like shoveling snow, can you be my snow guy? If they like playing with the children, let's send them down to the daycare center. Allow volunteers to volunteer where they are comfortable. And when you see they're not comfortable, that comes from you kind of being connected to them. And I think shout out to Trish Brown. She said it. A thank you goes a very long way. I say thank you probably more than most. You got to think if you're giving up your time and you work at a job and nobody says thank you, and you go home to kids and nobody says thank you, and you go to the grocery store and nobody says thank you. Here's an environment where you're going to feel valued and loved. When you walk into All Things Women, there's volunteer signs everywhere that says welcome volunteers, thank you volunteers. When you go to our social media, you'll find their pictures, you'll see them working hard, you'll see them engaging with the clients. And so the recognition, I think somebody else said it in the chat, it equals the retention, and giving volunteers very tangible evidence that their time and their energy is appreciated. And when they can see the families' faces, or they can walk out of the closet and see racks of clothes, or when they see lines of individuals and we're passing out jackets and they hear kids and families say thank you, goes a very, very long way. So never stop saying thank you.
I love that. I'm staying with you, Mina, because someone just mentioned corporate volunteers. So the question was, I also have a question about keeping volunteers engaged, especially if they are employees of a corporate donor. Is there a way to do that virtually or nationwide, less localized? So I know you have some relationships. So tell me a little bit about how you keep those corporate, where you got them from, I guess.
Yeah.
Where you get corporate volunteers, kind of how, and then how do you keep those folks engaged?
Yeah, so those we've been so fortunate. We have Rocket Mortgage here in Detroit, DTE Energy here in Detroit, the Detroit Pistons, the Detroit Lions. Like most large company, Detroit Axle, most of those companies all have volunteer experiences in those organizations. Rocket Mortgage sends us 10 volunteers a week. They're here for 2 hours. They have special little Rocket shirts. We always make sure we take a picture with them before they leave. We take pictures while they're here. That company went and told another company, hey, my employees go here. So then that CEO is like, okay, well, we're going to send our employees over there too. So probably in a month time, I'll have about 4 different companies who have scheduled their particular volunteer day at our site. And then when the volunteers come in, you look up and 2 weeks later, they're back and they're not even with the company, but they were like, I had such a great experience here. I felt so loved. I felt like what I did was so valuable to your organization. I came back and I brought my 2 girlfriends. And then on Saturdays, we do mommy and me or daddy and me volunteer experiences where you can bring your kids and show your children what it's like to give back. And they also get to see, interact with children who are in a shelter and families, and they get to just feel like, this is where I can make a difference in the world. So you kind of plant that seed. So don't make volunteering so rigid. Find companies who have volunteer experiences, look on their website, look at their social media, reach out to them and say, hey, you can come here and have a Kroger day, and all the Kroger volunteers show up. I have Home Depot coming here next month with the Home Depot team. They're finishing my entire second floor. I got an email last night from Amazon. Amazon said we want every room on the third floor. All of those are volunteers. They're coming to paint, decorate, and just lend their time. And because we are really good on social media, their constituents and the community get to see them at work. We go TikTok live when they're here, and so they just feel special. They feel important.
I love that. That is great. And it's kind of touching upon what someone else was asking, and you've all mentioned having a variety of things for people to do. So Waco wanted to know how to communicate the variety of ways to volunteer that are in addition to the main form of volunteering. In the case of my org, main volunteers go into classrooms to teach about science, nature, but the org has many other needs: communications, marketing, database, tidying up, etc. So Aiden, how do you communicate those extra opportunities aside from, obviously surfing?
Yep. So we have a lot of table and events that we do, and specifically geared towards the outdoors, whether it's a surf shop. One of our longtime grantees is Patagonia. We've had a relationship with them for years, and so we table it there. So whenever anyone comes in, we actually have that, and we have it also on our website, a list of things that you can do, because the first thing when we tell them what it is, the first thing obviously, a lot of people will say is, well, I don't surf or I don't even swim. And we're like, no, we have something for you to do. There's a list of things, and we share that list with them. You can do any of these things. And if you're interested in doing something that you may not like, for example, being a surf instructor or something else, we'll actually train you. We've done that. We have people who've been coming out now for 4 or 5 years every summer, and they get hooked on surfing. They're learning. We get them their ISA, which is International Surfing Association certification. We pay for it. We pay for them to get their CPR. We believe in investing in our volunteers if it's something that you want to do long term. A lot of the times when they come in, we ask for that. We ask for a long-term commitment, because the kids will get used to somebody and they'll be looking forward to seeing them every weekend when they come out. So we're just like, look, we try and get them to make that long-term commitment.
Well, what
So
does that look like? Am I signing something, and what is a long-term commitment?
yeah, well, we don't have them sign anything, but we make it explicit, like from the very beginning. We're telling them, we're like, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for you for the summer at least. When we say long term, we mean for the summer, because that's when the bulk of our stuff happens, between June and September. And we tell them we would love for you to come out, every weekend, if that's what you're gonna, if you're gonna be helping with the surf camp, we'd love for you to come out every week. And we explain to them why. These kids build these kinds of relationships with them, and they're looking for them. People just make connections like that. And so we ask for them to make that commitment. And if they can't, then we try and find another role for them to do. Some people are just like, it's work, it's summertime, and maybe they want to do something else. And so we're like, well, what else do you do? What do you do on your job? And that's how we found everything we have. The law firm that does work for us came through one of the volunteers, who's an attorney at this place. They're doing pro bono work for us. Where we're going to have our gala this year is one of our head surf instructors, who I had no idea was in, like, he's this big time developer or something. He just shows up at the beach, with his ripped up shirt and everything else. And so everything flows through that. We just and the volunteers that we have, I mean, they just love it. When they leave, it does so much more for them that they go out and they bring, it's like, Mina say, they bring other people. So they'll come back. Corporate volunteers have come out and they spent the day. And in 2 weeks' time, I get a volunteer application coming across, and I'm like, I recognize that name. And they show up with a bunch of people from their job, not having anything to do with their job. They just wanted to come back. And so that's how it just, people just go out.
That's great to hear. That means that you all are doing a good job. People want to come back and help. They're seeing what they're doing as important. They're having a good time. I know I worked in an organization where I was pretty much the only person. So everything I did had something to do with volunteers. And I was like, you know what? They actually like me because it's Saturday at 7 a.m. You know what I mean? So no matter how much of an impact you're going to have, you also want to have a good time, because people will not, if you're barking orders or you're just ornery or whatever it is, they may not want to come back. So you're all doing a good job of creating a good culture, I would say, as well. C.E. Patton wanted to know from Ali, I would be intrigued to know, what did the feeding program do to maintain the new levels post-COVID? So many organizations had a problem with the maintenance.
So scaling, that was a very quick scale up, but I did the groundwork before that happened. We kind of got word a few months before that, hey, something was going on. Everyone wasn't really taking it too seriously, but I'm that person. I'm that type A that's like, uh-oh, let's have a plan B, let's have a plan C. So with our ordering, I ramped up our ordering, I ramped up our partnerships and made sure that we had those in place should anything occur. We didn't know that everything was going to shut down, but I was keeping it front of mind. If need arose, we were able to meet that need. So ordering and everything started months ahead of time. So once everything hit, we were able to transition smoothly into that.
Well, and I think this person may be implying that some things were kind of shut down, but you were able to actually scale up even though you were okay. We
So we
see.
actually, yeah, there was one thing that they did. They gave a letter for essential workers, and so we got certification as essential workers, and so we were able to stay open and continue working.
Wow. Okay. And this is for you, Mina. For the transitional housing, how did your company, so how did your nonprofit get the capital to purchase, rent the first location, providing those initial 11 beds?
So we initially opened, and the city of Detroit approached us and said, hey, would you guys be willing to just house one family? And so, typically dealing with the city of Detroit can sometimes be tricky, but we said, yeah, we'll take this one family. And that one family was a family of 11, and we housed them, and we transitioned them within 90 to 100 days, and from there they just sent us families nonstop, and they found the money. We didn't even have the funding. They were like, listen, this organization is doing tremendous work, and they found the money to pay for each family that they placed with us. And then they subsequently said, now we want you to apply for what's called ESG, which is Emergency Shelter Grant. And so we then was able to apply for ESG. And what we try to do is use some ESG dollars that once they finish the shelter portion, they could go into transitional housing. And so we then found companies to pay for the transitional housing, and the city paid for the shelter housing. So once we had both of them in place, we kind of called it like, a natural transition to take you out of shelter, put you in transitional housing to ultimately prepare you for permanent housing, but you can't just find one grant. If it's transitional housing, you're going to have to find one grant for therapy, one grant for the food, one grant that's going to pay for case management, one grant that's going to pay for, rent and essential services. So you have to be diverse in how you look for funding for those particular venues.
Wow, that sounds like a lot, Mina.
It is. It is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you're always so enthusiastic. So here's a question for all of you, and I'll start with Aiden. What strategies work best for recruiting diverse volunteers? What are some innovative ways to recognize and appreciate volunteers? So recruiting diverse and then recognizing.
Our entire organization is based on diversity, and taking care of kids who ordinarily wouldn't get an opportunity to do something like this. And so recruiting, and by diverse I mean, in many different ways, was never a problem. That's how it started. It was within first I looked within the community. Before I started looking outwards, I looked within the community. That was, guess, one of the beauties of just, being somewhere for so long and living somewhere for so long. I didn't have to do much. It was a Facebook post at the time, and so that wasn't an issue. And then I just used my resources. I had a long career in financial services. I reached out to those folks. We all kept in touch. I was with one company for years and years and years, and so I reached out to them, and had people come from there. So I had all kinds of background. That wasn't an issue. Second part of the question was
Oh,
recognition.
yep.
It comes in so many forms. There's social media. Um, there's like just recognizing people on the beach. Uh, some days my wife would, she's out there working too. She'd bring like a pack of lifesavers, and whoever came that day and showed up and went above and beyond, she would say, "Oh, you were such a lifesaver," and she would give them the lifesavers. But mostly through social media. Um, Gifts, anything else. A lot of the folks who come out not looking for like some kind of like financial benefit or anything else, but mainly just, letting them know. Like you said, thank you goes a long way. Letting them, and they see the impact. I mean, it's been years now, and so those little kids, for the people who've come year after year, they're seeing these kids, off to college, and seeing them do really, really well. So just, thank yous, recognizing them on social media. Little gifts, whether it's merch or something else, and just mailing them something, just really, really showing your appreciation any way you can.
I love that. And you said recruiting wise, you lived a long life so far. And so you going into your own personal networks kind of worked for you in that case.
It definitely did. I mean, it was weird explaining it to some of the folks who've known me for so long in the community, because
Hmm.
I'm, kind of known for like coaching football with one of my friends that I grew up with, who's still the head football coach. So a lot of the
Hmm.
young men in the community knew me as that. So to see me now driving around with surfboards on top of my, you have to explain that. But there was a lot of
Yeah,
people in the community, a lot of people who, may have
love it.
moved away and come back. I know a lot of people in, the state senator lives across the street. I've known him since I was a child. So just reaching out to my network, whether it's in the community or, through my previous career in financial services, that's
Hmm.
kind of how I started it off. And then just word of mouth. It's a
Yeah,
really compelling story. It's you know, young woman of color, surfing in Queens,
right.
New York. And so it's not really hard to like get something like that. We have another organization that's up in Harlem, and they do ice skate, and it's easy to kind of get people to come out and support
Stand out.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Mina, how about you? Recruiting
So,
diverse
yeah,
volunteers?
recruiting. So what's so interesting is that our volunteers kind of look like a little bit of everybody, right? We recruit. We have, if you walk in the building, you're going to see seniors running around. You're going to find some Wayne State students running around. You're going to find some. We do a lot of postpartum programming, so you're going to find some new mothers. You may see some pregnant women running around. You're going to see all different races running around. So when you're recruiting your volunteers, they should feel safe and they should feel like this is a community. And so having volunteers from all walk of life has been what's essential. My staff ranges from age 68 to 27 because we represent women of all walks of life. I found in recognition, everybody gets these sweatshirts, they get these t-shirts. I see people with these shirts on in grocery stores. They're in other people's posts. And so these t-shirts at, 10.99 a t-shirt has been the biggest way to get volunteers in the door. They just want a t-shirt. They just, they just want something that they could take home and say, I'm part of a club. I'm part of a group. I'm part of a community because they get this t-shirt. They feel like I'm special and they wear them when they come and volunteer and they wear them in the community. And people say, what is that on your shirt? And you go, oh, I volunteer. So they get to brag on, what they do in terms of their service. It didn't cost a lot of money. We keep them, in all different sizes. And when new volunteers come in, the second or third visit, we give them one of this shirt. Go the Divine Nine. If you have the Divine Nine in your community, I pitted them one against the other. For Valentine's Day, the AKAs came in and I posted all their pictures on Facebook. And so the Sigma Gamma Rose was like, oh no, we'll be there for Easter. And then the Deltas was like, I tell you what, we're going to be there for, and so we all, I pitted the Divine Nine against each other. They all have service branches in those communities. Invite them over and you'll see them walking around in their All Things Women shirts. So, utilize those resources. They're free and you get good advertisement and you get people in the community talking about their volunteer services through you.
I love it. Hitting them against each other. Then
Yeah.
no one heard that. They didn't send a bunch of smiley faces.
I told them
Ali,
that.
you're right. Ali, how about for you for recruiting diverse volunteers and then recognizing them?
So we get a lot of assistance from the families that we serve. They want to give back in some way. So we get a lot of diversity through that because we're serving the entire state of Georgia and then nationwide as well. So another part of that is giving them opportunities that fit what they can do. So we have like 10 chefs that are like, hey, I cook for a living. What can I do? And we're like, okay, well, we have our homeless initiatives. So you can create meals and we'll serve hot meals every day for our unhoused populations. So we just find different niches and different needs and kind of fit them to our services. I think Mina spoke on that a little bit as well. So we kind of reach out that way. And then we also work with a lot of our colleges. So they have their graduate programs and they're looking for, their senior projects, what they want to do. And so they're like, okay, well, can we build a system for you? Can we come in and help you with your inventorying? So there's just different things that you can look out for, think outside the box on how they can help you, not just with your day-to-day services, but your back-end services as well. And then as far as recognition, you'll see any given Monday, you'll see us outside and you'll see our CEO. She's out there dancing, having a good time, music playing. And she's the first one you see. People drive up just to see her. If they don't see her outside, she runs in to grab something like, where's she at? Where's she at? She's not out here dancing. So she's just giving that kind of fun vibe and atmosphere for everyone. So they want to come back. But then she's also very thoughtful. So she has this really uncanny ability to know what people need without them saying anything. So even for our volunteers, they'll come up and she's like, I got something for you. And they bring it up. And it's like, oh my gosh, I really needed this. I was trying to figure out how I was going to get it. And here you are coming with this thing that I needed. Flowers. She likes giving flowers to people in life. So she literally has roses and flowers outside and she will dance up to someone and go, this is for you. Thank you for being here. So it's just the little things. It doesn't have to be huge, grand gestures, but just that every day, someone really appreciates me being here.
That is wonderful. These are really great to hear. And people, of course, want, and this is what we want for our leaders. We want them to get these like good tips and tricks and different things that they can apply. Rachel wants to know, how should we think about staffing our volunteers for success? Do you have a designated volunteer coordinator, or is it the responsibility of your entire team? So what are some of the logistics behind how you, I guess, like you get your volunteers, you bring them in, you train them, maybe you're vetting them. Is there some formal process? Is that someone's job? How does that work at La Rubea, Aiden?
It's the entire team. There is one person who specifically does reaching out to the volunteers and communication. We have a WhatsApp group that is live all year round for whatever may be going on. Just for because volunteers, they leave here, they become friends outside of La Robea and they hang out. I'm too old to be going and hang out and up late. I'm in bed by 10 o'clock. But they hang out after they're finished volunteering for the day. They're gonna have a day at the beach and they get together. So there is a process. Whenever they come out, we team them up, depending on what task they're doing, and they're doing their training, we team them up with somebody for the first couple of weeks. And it's a shadowing. So they're shadowing that person to see exactly what that person is doing. They're giving them, best. And the people who are doing that are volunteers who've been with us for years. And so even there's this big movement, especially with surfing and everything else. People are always moving from the East Coast to the West Coast. So every once in a while, I'll get a group of folks who are like, "Oh, I'm leaving. I took a job out in Cali somewhere, and I'm going to be going." And we lose that person, but they've been there for years. They've trained other people to do what they're doing. So it's not a big deal. And if they have friends who are moving to New York, they send them our way. I've had people just show up here saying, "Hey, I just moved from San Diego and my buddy told me about you and I want to come out and I want to volunteer." So partnering up with somebody, shadowing, I think it's the best way to learn, especially for certain things that are very, very specific. Yeah, you just training them. Like I said,
Yeah.
I've had the person that I have do the ISA training actually comes in from Jamaica. There's a Jamaican Olympic team, surfing team, and the person, yes, the person who trains, he flies out to New York. He stays with me for like a whole month, and he will train my staff to get their certification. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How about the process at All Things Women, Mina? I'm
Oh,
interested in
yeah.
volunteering. How do I get in there? How do I get started? Who's responsible for making sure I have a good experience and all of that?
So know that the fastest way to lose a volunteer is through lack of communication, right? When your volunteers enter your building, there should be a designated person. That person should have the message, should have the instructions, should have the answers. Versus saying, oh, go ask that person. No, this week is that person. No, I mean, the fastest way to lose a volunteer is when they feel like there's no structure, it's not organized, it's not safe. So, figure out, even though I have volunteers that train the volunteers. They only come to volunteer to be a volunteer trainer, because that's their gift and talent. But make sure there's a designated person. Make sure that person knows your organization and its mission, knows the expectations that you have for volunteers, is able to articulate that they are problem solver, because sometimes volunteers can become problems if they don't know what it is that they're supposed to do. So they're standing in the middle of the floor, turning in circles, and everybody's moving. So make sure they have a designated person to come to say, hey, I'm not clear on my assignment, or hey, my assignment is not working for that. Make sure it's clear that everybody knows who that person is. Don't let it be a secret, like, that they have to figure it out. Day one, that person is front and center. Have a central location where they can go and drop their jackets. Don't have their jackets here one day and their jackets there another day. Have a place where there's coffee. We put out snacks. There's comfortable chairs. In the summertime, there's fans and ice. Treat you sometimes, your volunteers are just as important as your clients and clientele. Be able to be communicative, be open, be careful about conversations that you're having. I had a great group of volunteers come in, and I had one volunteer. She was a 78-year-old woman, and she went on like a tirade about something political. And so volunteers are like, well, we're not going back there. So make sure that there's a person that monitors that kind of communication so that everybody feels like this is a safe place. So assign somebody that responsibility.
Thank you. How about you, Ali? Is there like an onboarding process? Is there somebody in charge of that? How does it work at Feeding Georgia Families?
So generally, when someone expresses an interest, they contact me first, and then I set everything up. We have a team, our team knows the process. So I'll tell them your on-site contact is going to be so and so. When they get there, they know I give them all the parking details. Everything's up front. Try to make it as easy and simple as possible so they don't have to figure things out. And so when they get there, they ask for that person, and that person knows, okay, this group is coming in, here are their core skills. This is what they're going to be doing for the day. Everything's pretty much laid out. And then I have backup plans. There's always a backup to the backup. So if it's raining, we're going to be doing this. If it's hailing outside, whatever the case may be, the truck didn't drop off these items. Hey, we're going to go in the back and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. I have a booklet on our front counter that has all of the volunteer activities. So they don't have to go around going, what do I do? There's a list of things that we can get done. Pick what's best for you or what interests you, and we can go from there and make that happen. But always have a list of things that can be done beyond the original plan.
Okay, so I'm trying to look at all these questions and also make sure I'm looking at the time. Um, you know what? Let me go to another question. So, Crystal wants to know, how do you manage volunteers in confidential spaces like shelters? Is it difficult for us? It is difficult for us to offer ongoing volunteer opportunities because our spaces are confidential. And someone is Jess Jones is giving a suggestion or saying, let them know. But in your case, Mina, and also Mina, you're in a shelter. So that's a confidential space. And then Aiden, I know you work with kids. So there's, that part of things. So if you could just speak to how that works. And Allie, maybe there's something I'm overlooking that you have to consider as well. But Mina, how do you work in that? How do volunteers work in that
Yeah,
space?
so we not only do we have a shelter, we also have a community coat closet where we give out free clothes, shoes. So that's primarily where our volunteers work. They very rarely work in our shelter spaces unless they're doing like an empowerment class, or like today they're restocking the diaper closet or something like that. So other than that, they're very rarely in our shelter spaces. We do allow organizations to come in and do like dinner. So that's always a supervised volunteer experience where the full staff is there. And if there's clients who want to come in, that they can come in. We always, there is a section where we provide, do you have any, incidents or anything like that? Are you, we ask those questions in our volunteer application. And then we do something called an iChat, which is a very simple, we can plug you in, it spits it out, it tells us if you have any of those issues. And so if you go into like our childcare space or our summer day camp program, you have to have that kind of background that says you have no crimes against children. Because we also use our local district courts. We are a community service site. So if you get a community service, a ticket or community service, the courts will call us and say, hey, we have somebody who has community service hours. So we also say that they can't have any criminal sexual conduct, can't be violent felonies, can't be involved with a weapon. And so you just kind of have to have those boundaries. But we have non-shelter spaces where we utilize our volunteers primarily.
That makes sense. Aiden, how about working with kids? What do I need to do in order to volunteer with you?
With us, any engagement you're going to have, if you're going to actually be on site with us, not just doing something remotely, you have to have a background check. It's something that we put on our applications, and we understand that some people who, for some reason, and I found this out a few years ago, New York has the highest charge for doing background checks. Like there's some states that you can get it done for free. And I didn't know this. It was just but New York charges a lot more than everybody else, so it can become expensive to do. So in our volunteer form, we ask if they can cover it, and if they can't, we pick up the fee for it. But you have to have a background check because you are going to be, working with kids, and you're going to be engaged that way. As far as privacy and anything else, we have waivers for everything. We get we had two volunteers last year who couldn't appear in like photographs for religious reasons, and they couldn't, and so we made sure that whatever social media we had, we made sure that they weren't in it or anything. So that's all on our application. But yeah, definitely background checks.
Okay. And just because I'm talking to you and someone said, have you thought of adding surfing programs for boys too? I just want to make sure we're okay with boys. That was just the
Oh no,
beginning,
we
right?
no, we started off only again because it was my daughter and her friends, and again, it
Right.
wasn't going to be a nonprofit. It was just, and yes, I have a son. I also have a son. He also surfs. So there are boys and girls now, but it is still about a, I don't know, 60, 60-40, mix. The girls run the
Girls are,
show. They still do. Our
that's
youth
just what we're
board,
like.
yeah, it's just it is what it is, and everybody understands it, and everybody's good with it. I'm good with it. I love it this way. It's a lot
Right.
different from when I was doing football. But yeah, we do have boys. So if you're inquiring because you live in New York and maybe you're thinking about bringing your son out, yes, yes, check us out. Yep,
Boys are fine.
boys are fine. Yep.
So, Ali, is there anything I'm not considering in terms of what volunteers you work with? And I'm gonna just fold in this question because a few people have asked about younger volunteers and what they have to consider when getting, either communicating or recruiting volunteers under 18. So I'm just giving you a little more work.
No worries, no worries. So the first person that people see when we come up is me. And I do that on purpose. So they have a steady face to talk to. They know that they can trust me. And they know that anything they tell me doesn't go any further than me unless they request it. So they drive up. I greet them. We have general conversations with everyone that comes through. They will tell me, hey, this situation is going on with me right now. If it's something like I can share this because she gave permission. Um, a young lady was just dropped at our location yesterday, just put out of the car in just a robe. Um, the family member just dropped her there and left her. Um, Very sensitive situation. I explained to the car that was in front of me, hey, we're handling a situation right now. We'll be with you in just a moment. Our CEO handles a lot of our situations like that. So she knows when I say, Madre, I need your assistance over here, she comes running over. And they've worked with her a lot, most of the families that come through. But even the new ones know, okay, if I'm handing them off to her, they feel safe that she's a safe place, a safe person to talk to. So we handle everything in-house that way. Um, but more specifically, and just to be a little bit more in depth on that, if I don't know what's going on with our families, that I can't help them. I I'm supposed to be the CFO that's putting money here and here and here. I don't know where to place that money if I'm not directly speaking to the families that we're serving. So that's why I'm there first and foremost. And then we have Madre on the side there that's kind of taking on those deeper dives with them to find out what they need. So she got her, some clothes to put on. We got her a ride back home, and she was able to handle that separately away from everyone else. Just because it's happening in front of everyone doesn't mean that it needs to be handled in front of everyone. So we're able to kind of navigate that by having dedicated people involved and out front with everything that we're doing. With our youth, generally we don't have youth activities that are not public facing. So with our volunteers, we don't have to go through a lot of volunteer background checks. We generally go through our schools for that. So everybody's already been background checked, and we don't have to worry about that with our organization.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mina, this is kind of for you. Someone asked, how do you figure out who to contact in those larger companies like Amazon, Home Depot? I'm just going to say that most of those larger companies have, corporate social responsibility arms. Like if you go to those websites and you can kind of see how we help sometimes under careers, maybe sometimes like somewhere in there about us, they'll tell you about their philanthropic work. But in terms of what you do, Mina, how do you know where to, reach
Yeah.
out?
Go to their social media. 95% of our connections were done through whoever runs their social media. We tag them when we do events. We put up special messages. Recently, we did a coat drive, and so a coat company was like, "Oh, okay, you guys are doing a coat drive. Check your email," and we got like 500 gift cards so that families could get discounts to this, Carhartt coat. So check the social medias, and then Our Amazon connections came from the Amazon driver. When the Amazon driver dropped off our boxes, we gave him our card. We gave him a tour. We was like, look, this is what we're doing. He went back and told his manager, and then his manager put together, a drive for us, and they showed up at our back door with a pallet of stuff. And now, it turned into a relationship where they're doing our whole third floor. So make your connections everywhere you can. I was in a grocery store yesterday buying dinner, and the lady behind me was talking about she just had lost some weight. And by the end of the conversation, she's now coming and doing yoga classes with the ladies. Like, get your connections where you find your connections. I'm
Just
always
talk.
talking about all things women, and I'm always talking about, giving people an opportunity to lend their talents to what we do. So yeah, that, run your mouth.
Right. I was gonna say you're actually one of my examples when we talk about how people have gotten grants, and you talk
Yeah.
about the fact that you were talking to a friend who was talking to somebody. Like,
Yeah.
if you love what you do, you just talk about it. And it
Yeah.
ends up that people, will kind of come to you, and all kinds of opportunities will open up. Aiden, this is for you. Angela wants to know, I would appreciate hearing how you make the connection between surfing and ocean stewardship in your messaging to volunteers and donors, funders, if that's within the scope. They are in Oakland, California, and they have a similar mission.
Yeah, so a part of what we do, besides the surfing and the surf therapy, um, especially with the younger ones who are coming up now, is in this new blue economy, is that we explain that the ocean gives so much to you and that you need to take care of it and give back. And that's from day one, from the kids coming out. We have our, coastal cleanups every month. Every time they come out, they're cleaning up. We explain to them a big part of what we do is environmentalism. And with climate change and everything else happening, maybe long after I'm gone, but when these younger ones are coming up, Rockaway is going to look a lot different. And so that messaging comes in from day one. Part of our curriculum has to do with, environmental stewardship. We have classes on the ocean and on the Bayside, which I'm sitting on right now. So yeah, that messaging is all a part of it. You're working in the outdoors. Nature gives you so much. Mother Ocean gives you so much. So you have to give back. Anytime you're out there, if you're out there with your family and you see trash, you pick it up. Whenever you paddle out on your board and you get in the ocean, if you see something floating around, you put it in your wetsuit, you bring it back out. Just, take care of the community that you live in. So yeah, that's I'd love to know who that is out in Oakland. I have some friends out there too, some orgs out there.
They may reach out to you, I'm guessing, on
Yeah, I hope
LinkedIn.
they
So yeah,
do. Looking to take a
definitely
trip out
do.
there.
Yep. And Ali, question for you. And this is, people are kind of, I told you I was going to bring up boards, got to bring up boards. But in terms of your board of directors, or maybe you have an advisory committee, any of those things, is that totally separate from volunteers, or do they get to come out and help as well?
No, our board is very involved. That's one thing I will say. Our board treasurer right now, he volunteers every Monday. He's the line attendant. He's the first person they see when they drive up, and then they talk to me first, right? So they see him immediately. Our vice president and our president, they're out at events with me. So if there are speaking engagements, they're usually you see them along with me out and about with that as well. We have new elections ending this month, so we will have a new board, but they're also volunteers. One young lady, she actually delivers for us. So she loads up her vehicle and she delivers all over South Fulton County for veterans that are in need. So everyone is very involved from the ground up. It doesn't matter what their title is, everybody volunteers in some capacity with us.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Same thing with you, Mina?
Yeah, if your board is not showing up, if you've not seen their face beyond, a board meeting, then consider, board members. My board, I just had a board member walk down the hall. She's got a big old gash of white paint because she's in there, painting the kitchen. And just a couple minutes ago, I just heard the president of the board fussing, telling somebody to take that box down to the other end of the hallway. Like if they are not there, I even have a board member who is in a wheelchair. He's in the kitchen right now trying to figure out why the TV speakers are not working. Find you board members who believe in your mission, who believe in what you do just as wholeheartedly as you do. I'll wake up some mornings and go to Facebook and see a board member has reposted something that we posted. And so your board members are the life and the breath for what you do. You just live it and you are you're the mechanism. Find your board members who show up and pass out food and, are there like, aiding on the beach line and passing out lunches and collecting surfboards, because how do you go out and try to raise money for an organization that you have no idea what's going on in the day to day?
So, Mina, you made that sound exactly how we want it to be, right? We want these board members that do the work and are there with you, all the things, but that isn't always true. Are you saying all of your members have been 10 toes down since the
No,
beginning?
I'm 5 years
Okay.
in, and those first 3 years, like they just
Mm.
wanted to show up at the table and have board meetings and eat those great meals that we provided, right? But my board president, it didn't come from me, it came from my board president getting up and being there every week. She has a text stream and she texts board members, this is going on Tuesday. Coat drive starts at 7. Come down. And so you have to find a leader because it was too much for me to try to rally the board members. You
Please,
have to
please.
find a board president that does it by example. And she does. She is here. She gets off work and she's here. She's talking to the ladies. She's talking to the staff. And so she expects that everybody that is on that board works as hard as she does. But I had to go through a full board members, you may have
Okay.
to, and it's okay. And some of them I was related to.
That's usually the problem.
Right, right.
Might be the problem. So really quickly, just give me, I guess, maybe where you got your, I don't want to say best board member, but where's some place you found a board member? Where did this board member come from? Your board chair.
A formerly homeless woman who understood what this mission was about, who had children and raised children and lived for a very brief time in the shelter, and had was on food stamps and age. She's now working in the hospitals and thriving, but because of her experience, she brings those lived experiences to the board, and she's able to bring that passion for what we do when she talks to other board members, and she's able to say, listen, I like you a lot, but you're not meant for this board because we break nails and get paint all over our shirts.
Yeah.
And so she's
How
very.
did she end up becoming your board president?
She actually, I've known her, for years. I've worked in nonprofits for years, and one day she worked at she was volunteering at another nonprofit. And when I told her I was opening my own nonprofit, she was like, "Sure," And so she thought she would be a staff person, but her leadership, skills served the organization better as a board member. And so
Mhm.
she just believed in the mission. And so she recruits board members from churches and other nonprofit organizations. Our board members range from working from the IRS to being a stay-at-home mother. So,
Mm.
but it's more about the passion than it is the position. And so we recruit board members based on their passion for what it is that we do.
I love that so much. That is exactly what should be happening. But thank you, because we know it isn't we know what we want and what
Yeah.
works well, but it doesn't always, work out that way. So we're coming to the end, and I just want to make sure, and I tried, y'all. I got to some questions for sure, but I want to make sure we hear from our leaders kind of that last gem, the thing that they would have wanted to know a few years ago, before you started, particularly around volunteers, and then just any advice that you have to give to leaders running small nonprofits. And I'll start with Aiden.
Like to say, probably the most important thing about volunteers, take the help. Um, I'm one of those folks who I don't like to ask. If I can do it myself, as a matter of fact, the first year when we first got our incorporation, and my brother has a trucking company, does very well. That credit card ran that program for the first year because I didn't like to ask for money. And, one of my now board members, same thing, came to me and said, "You're not asking for yourself. This isn't for you to go buy a new car or do something else. Learn to take the help. Learn, I mean, and you're helping people. You're doing so much for them when you allow them, to do that. So many people come at the end of the summer and they're like, man, I was going through this, I was going through that. And just seeing these kids every weekend and being in the ocean and doing this did so much for me. So learn to take the help. It took me, being hospitalized, to understand that I couldn't do it all on my own, that I needed to trust people enough to let them help. So that would be my big take. And in light of something that you mentioned, also in light of what's going on now, we're going to need each other more than ever. Mutual aid is going to be huge. We're going to have to learn how to do things a little different. I'm used to this, I came up in this, and so it's not going to be that much of a change for me, but we're gonna really have to lean on our volunteers and lean on each other in the next couple of years, if we're going to continue to just, help our communities.
Yes, thank you. That is a message we definitely need to hear. Ali, what do you want to tell us, our nonprofit leaders?
Let your community lead your programs and services. And what I mean is, do not give what you think they need. Our board is made up of people that we have served in the past, families we've served in the past. They need to have a voice in your programs and services. If they're not there, pull some in, because you're just doing, but you may not be doing what's best for them. So always lead with the families first.
That is absolutely wonderful advice. Mina, you're going to close us out. What do you want to tell nonprofit leaders?
Thanks, Aiden. I think I needed to hear that right now. I appreciate that message. I always tell nonprofit, first of all, shameless plug, I always send them to Candid for training. My Candid experience was phenomenal. I was a new nonprofit leader and took my very first class and just got addicted. I just got hooked on the education. So, find organizations like this, find training opportunities like that. Listen to these kind of programs and take it to heart. Like if nobody got anything, if you guys did not hear Aiden's message in terms of, we try to do it all on our own. We feel like nobody can do it better than us. And then our blood pressure is high and we're not good for anybody else. Say it again, take the help, utilize the help, get a circle of individuals that you trust. Do not get yes men. Last week, the city asked me for a proposal. I said, I'm going to ask for $150,000. My board was like, no, we're asking for $300,000. That didn't feel comfortable to me, but I'm glad I took their advice, because 300 is what we needed. I thought if I said 150, they just, but use the resources around you. And like I said, use these opportunities through Candid. These are wonderful and phenomenal opportunities for training. So thank you for having us, and thank you for putting this training out there.
Thank you all. I appreciate you. I want to make sure people got our survey. I can be really bad at putting this up. So thank you all for attending today. And if you like this webinar, we hope that you'll be at the next one where we have nonprofit leaders speaking and giving us all these great gems. Thank you, Aiden. Thank you, Mina. Thank you, Ali. You guys were amazing. And we really appreciate the work that you do. I will let you go back outside and go get your work done.
Thank you. See you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank y'all so much.